Can I say got it? All right.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning, Fred.
Morning.
Do I just minimize it or do I close it?
You can just close it and just make sure people know that they're live.
Yeah. Sounds good. Sounds good. I think we'll just wait a few more minutes. Anna's not here yet, and Heather and some other folks. So just give it a couple more minutes for people to join.
Mhm.
We'll get going. Hello, Anna.
Good morning.
How's it going?
You know how excited I am? I'm like, oh, I just get to listen. I don't have to chair. I don't have to talk. This is great.
I do. Yeah, you are on there for one thing.
Oh, yeah, but that's one thing. That's not
About 11 things. This is one thing.
awesome. I can handle 10%.
Exactly. Hello, Ellen.
Hi.
Come on, Pat's here too.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning.
I do have a quick update. I don't know where you want to stick it in the agenda, Amy, around the meat, because I've had conversations with the environmental health officer and the lack of labeling. So I wasn't sure if that's on the agenda or needs to be, or
You can just put it, everyone's written down as having a chance for a verbal report. So anything like that, you're gonna have your chance kind of around the table, and you can just stick it in there as a verbal report. And then
Yeah.
if you don't have anything to say, like if it comes to you don't have anything to say, you're just like pass, nothing to report, and then it just goes
Yeah.
on.
so it's just like an open floor.
Yeah, it's just figuring out where to stick it in the agenda because the agenda format's set.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I came up with the reports.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning, Lisa.
Just finished canning my relish, so it was very close trying to get it done there.
Nice.
Mhm.
All right. Do we kind of have everyone here pretty much? You guys want to get going? Just to let everyone know, it is being live streamed, so people can be watching all the committee meetings, I believe, are live streamed, committees of the board. So this is being live streamed to the YouTube channel so that people can watch if they want to in public. I just want to let everyone know that before we get going.
Okay, you ready?
Ready, Eddie? I mean, Ann.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 9:33 a.m. I think I'm just looking around the table and I think everybody is familiar with everyone. And so we won't go around the table today. I'd I'd just like to recognize that today's meeting is being held on the unceded territories of the Seashot and Hoochis First Nation. And as Amy mentioned, it's being recorded. So I will ask if there was any additions to the agenda. Hearing none, I would like to request a motion to approve. Anybody want to make that motion? Red, thank you.
I can second
Seconded by
it.
Anna. Okay, thank you. Did you get that, Amy? And hearing if no one opposes, it'll be carried. The draft minutes of the May 30th meeting, 2023. Was there any errors or admissions? Hearing none, I'd like to call for that the draft minutes from the Agriculture Development Committee meeting held May 30th be received. Could we have a motion for that, please?
So moved.
Bob Collins.
I'll second it.
Second. Thank you, Helen. If no one's opposed, it'll be carried. Okay, number 4 on the agenda is petition of delegations and presentations. I'd like to introduce Randy Thoyne, Fire Smart Coordinator for the ACRD. And he's going to talk to us about extreme weather preparedness and agriculture program. Sorry, mouthful. Randy?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for letting me speak to you this morning. I've got a PowerPoint that I'm going to share just to illustrate a couple of points. I won't go through every slide in detail. But for those of you who might be aware, we did an agricultural, agricultural workshops last year that weren't super well attended, but we're going to keep going on it. The reason that I'm bringing this forward is that the Ministry of Agriculture, through their extreme weather preparedness program, has put together another year of funding for infrastructure projects for agriculture. And with the wildfire piece this year, they're including sprinkler protection in that. So as you can see, Fire Smart BC is a program that's we're committed to building wildfire resiliency and reducing negative impacts for everyone throughout the province. And probably agriculture takes the biggest hit. Anyways, there's a number of things that we can do to around our agricultural properties that can help reduce the risk. And one of them is completing a wildfire plan. So even if you don't intend to apply for any of the grant money that's available, I'll get into in a minute, this planning is helpful in a number of ways. So obviously we're in the regional district here. There's just shy of 6,600 square kilometers, 3 municipalities, 6 electoral areas, and 10 First Nation areas, and it's challenging. From some of our wildfire planning that we've completed previously, if you look at this map, this is the city. So where my cursor is pointing here, that's the inlet. Over here is Sprout Lake, and this long strip up the middle here is Beaver Creek area. If you can't see the colors too well, what I wanted to point out is that there's a fair bit of yellow, which means our risk is moderate in a good portion of our areas, but we do have spots of high and extreme. But more importantly, that big grayed out area is all private land. And so we don't have data to tell us what our conditions are like there, but it's likely that it's just as challenging there. And it's the same going down the inlet, Bamfield. And of course, from our planning that we did last year, we know along in the Long Beach electoral area that we have a number of areas that are challenging as well. I've had some folks tell me that we don't get fires like that here, but we know from this year, Cameron Bluffs, although the fire didn't impact any built values, it shut down our highway, which basically shut down the whole west coast. I don't think I'm sharing anything that folks don't know already about wildfire. We need fuel, weather, and topography. And right now, the weather has created a situation where our fuel is quite dry. And so some of the challenging things we have are our properties are built intermixed and interfaced into our bush areas, and we have a significant amount of coniferous vegetation. Fires get going, embers help spread the fire, radiant and extreme heat through different packages on your property help spread the fire through the property, and things that influence that are things like dense continuous vegetation, fence lines, and that sort of thing. So this program is really about removing pathways to the built values on your property, and then also doing things around your building that will help it survive. I won't play this video because it gets kind of long, but if you folks are interested, if you go to YouTube and it's Fire 206 rear dash cam. So this is Fort McMurray at 2:45 on a Wednesday afternoon when the fire entered the community. And if you're watching the video, just watch the fellow on the motorbike as he carries on down the road. He's looking pretty comfortable, and then he starts getting further over because of the heat. The part that's interesting is as we get to this part here, watch the houses on this side of the road as the vegetation starts to catch on fire, and how from the embers that are going across the road, and then just watch how this bush and things like that impinge on the buildings. It's a challenging time for those folks. So what can the producer do? Well, we can reduce our risk of damage and loss by preparing, making sure you're insured during the fire, monitoring official information sources and responding to the situation, then afterwards helping with recovery. FireSmart has put together a number of resources for you to easily assess your property, or with the help of someone like myself, assess it and make some recommendations and align a plan on the things that you should treat first. There's a number of resources available, including from the Climate Change Adaptation Program on wildfire. On BC FireSmart, there's the Farm and Ranch Wildfire Planning Guide and Workbook. And of course, the province has a number of resources available as well. This guide and workbook is designed to help you walk through your site and produce a plan that will enable you to prioritize things. It will help first responders if they have to respond to your property, and in a number of ways. And it doesn't matter whether you're involved in livestock, whether you're producing, something, vegetation or something like that, or what your operation is. There's something in each of that for each type of producer. It breaks it down before, during, and after, and what to do with this plan when it's complete, and then some additional resources. I'll just bring out some highlights on this. One is the Premises ID program going back to 2022. You need that to assist with re-entry into your evacuated zone to take care of livestock and crops. And it also assists you with access to different recovery programs. I bring this to your attention because it's been recently updated by Wildfire BC, open burning practices for farmers and ranchers. So there's a number of updates to this, and then they're continuing to update the regulation with some definitions about what certain types of things are, like outdoor stoves, etc. Outdoor burning or open burning used to be the go-to method for most rural properties to take care of excess vegetation on their property, and doing it in the fall or the spring. basically, I would advise you to have a good conversation with your insurer before you continue that practice, because you don't want to be responsible for an escaped fire. There's some other alternative methods for that, and we'll get into that. So this is what the guide looks like. They're running this program again this year. The flyer that I provided to Amy to put into the agenda tells us that the intake period had closed already, but they've informed me that that they still have money on the table, and so they're going to continue to accept applications for this program until all the money is spoken for. And so if you want to be a part of this program and do anything wildfire in the wildfire preparedness category, you'll need to apply to them first. And here's some of the projects that they'll do. So foremost is getting that infrastructure assessment completed on your property by a pre-approved professional, and they'll pay 100% of that cost, up to $2,000. They've got a number of projects identified in farm building retrofits, so roofing, gutters, cleaning up around the outside, exterior siding, doors, that sort of stuff. And they'll pay 30% of that, up to $35,000. Critical farm structures projects. So we're talking about valve station, substation, propane tanks, utility poles. It's not limited to this list. Water infrastructure, I think, would be in there as well. But again, 30% up to $35,000. And then addressing vegetation on your property and combustible materials. So we use a zone system to identify areas around your built values on your property, starting with the building, then the non-combustible zone, zone 1, zone 2, and they'll pay 50% of that, up to $35,000. And then, of course, the sprinkler protection project. And so you can buy equipment like sprinkler systems, equipment and fittings to connect that system to water sources or provide a reliable water delivery, and they'll pay 25%, up to $35,000. There's some caveats with the sprinkler protection piece. Before you can qualify for purchasing this equipment, you have to have gone back and address some of the vegetation around your buildings, as well as some of the structural things. And we can get into that if you're interested. So this is how the process works. Essentially, the producer applies and is accepted of the program. And then after that, they're referred to a Fire Smart professional that's been approved to do these assessments for you. And then you follow the steps through the process to apply for funding, and then complete the work, and then report it out at the end. Like I was mentioning earlier, we use a zone system to assess your buildings. This shows a home, and so I just want to be clear that that the home assessment is separate from the extreme wildfire or extreme weather preparedness program that the province is doing. So we do the same thing to your barns and built values on your property, but we look at the building itself, the immediate zone, intermediate zone, and extended zone. In the home side of things, you have a rebate available to you of up to $1,000 per property, and it'll pay for a number of improvements, as well as vegetation management as well. So you can do one of those programs, you can do both of those programs, or just have the assessments completed and then decide to do something about it later if you want. There's nothing within this that's regulatory. So it's all about recommendations, and then you determine what works best for you. And nobody's going to show up later on and say that you didn't do this work, so we're going to pursue you through bylaw or something like that. It's all about just trying to provide some information to the producer so that they can make some decisions about building some resiliency into their properties. If you're interested in contacting me, you can contact me through the ACRD office here or at this email. And I'd be happy to go or speak with you, I guess, more in depth about either program. And if you're looking for a home assessment and that sort of thing, then please by all means contact me. Because a number of the recommendations typically produce some vegetative waste, we have a free program where we'll pick up 2 loads of that. So branches up to 4 inches in diameter, no invasive species like broom or blackberry, but we'll come and pick up 2 loads of it for free. You just have to give us a shout again at the same numbers. And I've gone through this fairly quickly, so if anybody has any questions, I will stop my share here and answer. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Yes.
Hi, I just have a question. Is this only for registered farms that have farm status, or is this also for hobby farms that just have acreage and?
So the extreme weather preparedness program, where there's the significant amount of money on the table, yeah, you'll have to have some sort of farm status, I believe. But as far as helping you with planning and doing the home assessments, I'm happy to work with any resident within the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District. It's worth it in the long run to go through that process. Like I said, the planning is helpful, and at the very least, we can provide the $1,000 rebate for you to do work on your home, but it just helps identify some priorities on your property, you know, if you're needing to do that work.
Thank you.
Hi, Anna.
Hey, Randy, thanks for that. I have a question around, has the program ever thought about, I mean, the curbside pickup or the yard waste pickup is great, but for those larger agricultural properties, like the possibility of using like a curtain burner to be able to do some of the open burning, like I was thinking like, oh, what if the Farmers Institute had a bunch of members that wanted, because there isn't a curtain burner in Port Alberni, but to bring something like that in, and then you're also at the same time reducing all the particulate matters going into the air shed, and because most farms are not going to burn when they're land clearing.
Yeah, so within the programs that I have access to, we don't have that option. In the interior and in the north, they have both cultural burning and prescribed burning that they do, and there is funding available for it. I'm only aware of a couple of projects that have been attempted on the island. On the coast here, our environment, even though we are significantly drier than we normally are right now, or have been in the past, our environment provides a much different fire behavior. And so the approach on the island has been to remove that vegetation rather than burn it. And there's a number of areas where they're starting to use that material in chip form, in composting and other things like that. So, but that's not to say that you couldn't propose a project like that. Like, my understanding is, I mean, they've identified those things that we've or that I quickly went over in the program there. But if there was, if there was an alternative solution that somebody was proposing, I'm sure that we could connect you with the right people to get at least have that conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions for Randy? No? Well, thank you very much, Randy, for coming and
Heather,
speaking.
was that Heather? Did you have a question, Heather?
Oh,
I'm
sorry, Heather.
two comments, I guess. First, I really encourage people to use the local program. It's really accessible, and Randy always forgets to mention that they actually will pay you for 50% of a wage of $29 an hour to do this work. So it can be, you can get paid for things that you might be doing around your property, just cleaning up and stuff like that. In terms of the emergency preparedness grant, Randy, just something to keep in mind. I was just looking at the eligibility. So you have to be a registered farm business. And then the other caveat that they say in the regs is that it has to be, you have to be a primary your business has to be primary production. So that's the main bulk of your farming business. And that can be a real challenge for a lot of the smaller scale producers. So just keep that in mind when you're talking with the ministry about these things, because time and time again, we see programs that are provincial that don't really scale down to what the producer needs in our region.
That's a fair comment, Heather. And just the other thing that struck me initially from this whole thing, even last year, is their intake deadlines always seem to align with when a producer is busy with something, either haying, birthing animals, harvesting. Like it really does, their timeline, and I've shared that feedback with them, that their timelines don't align with a farmer's schedule.
Yes, and they tend to be short, although I have noticed that there's some changes there. So I think that piece is actually that they're shifting, but they still haven't gotten the smaller scale issue. They're just not seeming to respond to that. And then I just wanted to share with everyone from the ministry perspective in terms of emergency response to agriculture. I got an email from Debbie Evans, who's the emergency and management advisor with the province, just asking if I would be on a list of consultants that they would contact if they needed assistance in dealing with agriculture emergencies. So I just thought that was a good thing that they're actually collecting a list of names locally. And I thought maybe I could pass your name along if you would be willing to be on that list as well. And if there's anybody else, then let me know and I can just share those names. So that's just a nice to know that they are reaching out. Of course, we always have the EOC and the paid staff, but they also have a list of extra names. So
Yeah, for sure.
that's all.
Is there any more questions for Randy?
Well, I guess I should take Heather's lead and just elaborate on the $1,000 rebate for the home side of things. So that'll pay for recommended solutions from the assessment. So if you have to hire somebody to do that work, it'll cover that. If you have to buy materials to do that work, it'll cover that. And then they use the Canada Revenue Agency's volunteer hourly rate of $29 an hour, and they will pay you for your time to do some of those things if you're doing them yourself. So if it takes you 6 hours to prune your trees and stack those branches for collection, then they'll pay you 6 hours at $29 an hour. And how it works is it's 50% of that up to $1,000. So if you're going to get the full $1,000 rebate, you'll have invested a $2,000 in value. It's a pretty great program. It's the money is available, and they certainly want folks to use it to make sure that their properties are improved. And it'll pay also includes if you're doing some new construction or renovations, there's some pieces of that type of work that will qualify as well. So again, rather than trying to determine whether or not your situation fits into that program, have a conversation with me first, because like I said, we can't approve every alternative solution, but if it's in a reasonable solution and we can demonstrate that it's going to make your property more resilient, they are willing to have a listen to the request. So
Great.
Randy, would it be okay if you just dropped your name or your phone number and your email into the chat?
Sure.
There, so that everyone can copy down at their leisure if they want to
Yep.
contact you.
I'll do that. Yeah. And Lisa, did you have a question?
Yeah, just a quick question. You mentioned premise ID is required in order to be able to get back to your property. You can't produce a driver's license with your address on it?
Yeah, no, you need to be able to prove that you're the producer for that property, right? I don't know. I'm not 100% familiar with the program, so I won't comment on it any further, other than that ID that you have, premises ID, will provide you access to your property before the other forms that used to get you there will. And that's just a thing that they've done throughout the province. So So say, for example, if an area was evacuated and they've put a restricted access on an area and you need to return to your property as a producer to water plants or take care of animals or whatever, they want you to have that premises ID.
Okay, thank you, Randy. There's no more questions. We'll move on to correspondence and actions or information that has been provided. Amy, do you want to speak on these or someone else?
I can just run everyone through quickly. The correspondence, I put it in there basically as information to read at your leisure.
Right.
One thing I do want to take everyone through, because Anna is going to be speaking about it later, is the farmland advantage. Or I guess I just want to turn your attention to the item number A. So it starts on page 12 on your agenda. If you want to scroll down with me to page 12. And basically what I did was just dropped it in here. There was like no easy way to do this. They did not make it simple. So I screenshotted everything on the website and dropped it in there. But basically Anna's going to be talking about this a little bit later, but it's a payment for ecosystem services. And she's alluded to it in a previous ADC meetings. And in general, what it is a payment system, however rudimentary so far, but it's a payment system for protecting ecosystem services, because they're recognizing that ecosystem services are beneficial beyond dollars and cents. So something like a producer keeping a wetland on their property, protecting that wetland from their livestock, things like that, they have inherent value, and the value goes beyond the borders of that farm to the greater ecosystem itself. And so in trying to promote that idea that ecosystems have value, they've implemented this. And that's just going to be my intro to it. And then Anna's going to speak to kind of our scenario here in the Alberni Valley a bit later. And then the other items were just for information. And if you have any questions, you can always contact me for more information, or if you have any questions about anything.
Okay. Any questions for Amy on that?
Yeah,
Hearing
Lisa?
none.
Yeah, hi, Amy. So question, so people are expected to produce a certain dollar value amount from their property. And in the past, producers were told that they were going to be taxed residential if they didn't farm every square inch of their property. So I am concerned that, that's great if we're encouraging, to have some setbacks in that, but then that will impede some people's ability to be able to produce that dollar amount in order to get farm status.
I can check and see if it has a corresponding, like an increase in ecosystem services has a corresponding reduction in the requirement to farm, or Anna might know something about that.
Yeah, I can speak to this right now, just in the sense that you can't even apply for the Farmland Advantage Program unless you are an existing farm already. And as well, you have to have a GST number. Those are kind of the two qualifiers to even be considered for this program. The other thing is that typically, from my understanding from the agrologist who does the riparian health assessments, is the area that's encompassed is approximately 100 to 300 feet long, usually along a stream bed. So it's not typically an area that you are going to have a huge dollar value coming off of, if that helps at all.
Okay, thanks.
It does. Thank you.
I think just another point from what I understand, like, so the farm tax status, which I think is what you're talking about, Lisa, like they when they look at the property, they do take portions of the property that are, like, they call them not farmable, and they'll include those in the land amounts. Like, say if you need however many acres that you need to be farming, they'll take some of those areas out that are not farmable, including like your personal residence, or including like if there's a huge gully that's just not farmable. That's my understanding of it. So I'm assuming that if you went through this program, that they would also then use that chunk and say, okay, well, that's not farmable now, but it's included in that that land. A bit of an assumption, but from knowing how the farm tax status assessments work. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you.
Okay, regenerative farming program, another piece of information that Amy has given us. Anything to say on that, Amy?
No, the other two were just for information only.
Okay.
If anyone has any questions, if you take a read through and you ever have any questions, and you don't have time to bring it up in the meeting or you read it afterwards, you can always reach out to me and ask any questions you have, and I'll look into it for you for sure.
That
And on the
includes
flip side of that, now that we have a section on the agenda, kind of more for informational stuff, if there are things that come across to your guys' desks that you're like, oh, it's not like we have to speak much about it, it's just trying to get the word out on things, feel free to forward them to me and say, can you include this for information? And I'll slot it into the agenda. And then it's just one more way to get information out that might, you might be looking for more uptake.
Erica, you don't have anything to add to the impact report for Tofino Community Food Initiative?
I don't. I think it speaks for itself.
Great. Yeah, it's very good.
Read it. Yeah, it's great. I think the only real challenge we're having with any type of food or growing activity is people, just volunteers, staff time. It's a real challenge. So I know they're struggling along with the rest of us, but it's a great report.
Okay, I just need to get a motion that these reports are received as part of our correspondence. Nobody?
I'll give you a motion. Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Nobody's opposed. We'll carry on. Okay, request for decisions, agricultural water infrastructure funding opportunity. There again, we have that information in front of us.
All right, so I included a rudimentary report down on page 28, 29. Basically what happened is there was a launch from the provincial government for an agricultural water infrastructure funding opportunity. And it's a grant program with 3 different streams. I'm going to go more into the program itself down under staff reports, but this request for decision is based on the fact that we've had 2 reports now put out for the ACRD, and both of them have referenced looking into funding sources for a feasibility study for an irrigation district for the Alberni Valley. So based on those reports, I thought I would bring it to the committee to see if there is a stream of funding in this ag water infrastructure program, stream 3, that is for the development of plans and reports and feasibility studies and things like that. So I wanted to ask the committee if they wanted to make a recommendation to the board that staff be directed to apply for funding through this agricultural water infrastructure program. Any thoughts? Lisa?
Yeah, I know Beaver Creek, I mean, being more agricultural area and stuff like that, that they've been asking for agricultural needs and stuff like that for water. I wonder if the regional director for that area might also be interested in that kind of thing. Maybe Fred would have an idea on that.
The water in Beaver Creek is always a source of concern. Since they switched over to city supplied water, there's a lot of back and forth about whether it was a good idea or not a good idea. Costs have gone up. Now there's water restrictions, lots of things like that. So alternative sources of water for Beaver Creek would always be a good thing. I don't want to speak on behalf of Susan, but I think she'd say the same thing. In Beaufort, we're all self-sufficient for water, but anyway, we can get more water would always be good. But I don't think anyone in Beaufort is into a city or ACRD supplied water source. But identifying future opportunities to get water in the mountains would always be good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good that you brought up the Beaver Creek specifically, because when I looked into the water license, that would be the primary source of the irrigation water. It's part of the, it's off the Stamp River, and it's specific right now, it's specific to Beaver Creek. Because it was the water license that they were drawing the Beaver Creek water from before they joined up with the city water. So the thing is, though, it's sizable. It's almost 600,000 cubic meters, or it's huge. So the way that I had it in my report was eventually, because we don't know what's going to happen with things like climate change and things like that, eventually for Beaufort and Cherry Creek, if this proves to be feasible for Beaver Creek. But Beaver Creek was meant to be the first electoral area that the feasibility study would be looking at. Anna?
Oops, playing with my mute button. Yeah, interesting. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that, because I mean, I did chair the water council, and over a year and a half ago asked Mike Erg to look into Front Counter BC, specifically around that water license and the ability to transfer it. Very specifically, there were a couple farms that requested, like if that license isn't being used, if they could utilize it, and that was never ever followed through on. And then the whole idea of the irrigation has really been pushed by a farmer that's actually out Sprout Lakeway, out by the airport. They've been the biggest proponent of pushing the irrigation district. So it was interesting when I read the thing like that, you know, that area isn't even included. And then the other person to speak with directly in the ACRD, who is very much like, yeah, not going to happen, is Jenny Brown. She said there is no way they were going to twin lot, like she just said no. So I mean that you know, there was that initial foray into that, and it would be great to have a feasibility study done. But I think there's some in-house questions at the ACRD staff, or a conversation that needs to happen at the staff level even before it's brought to the board, because there seemed to be a bit of division.
Yeah, the conversation that was had in-house was with the twinning of the lines when there's work already being done on the Beaver Creek water system. But when they look back at the numbers of meters of Beaver Creek water system being, opened up annually, the amount of time it would take to twin everything wasn't feasible. This feasibility study, based on the fact that we already have a huge water license coming off the Stamp River, would be to leverage funding and grant opportunities to lay dedicated line. They wouldn't be twinned with the other one. It would be dedicated. And then it can be tied more to, because Beaver Creek water supplies all of Beaver Creek, from the smallest lot to the biggest farm in all of Beaver Creek electoral area. There might be capacity to tie the irrigation district to specifically agricultural land or agricultural properties based on some kind of formula or something like that, of number of animals, number of acres, amount of water needed, things like that. So the twinning of the lines, I don't think will go, but the potentially applying for funding down the line for a dedicated irrigation district, dedicated irrigation piping, that might be more plausible.
Yeah, well, even the reactivation of the now decommissioned pump house, and that original, is from 4 years ago. So I imagine the cost is astronomical compared to what it was then. And it was significantly high at that point in time. So,
Yeah, and I mean, we might go through this whole exercise. There is a chance you go through a feasibility study and at the end of it, you get a big stamp that says not feasible. But I mean, that's not a decision for me to make. So if we want to go ahead with it, then that's my question if we want to. But Bob has a question.
I'm just curious to know the size of the resource available. I mean, you get a huge water license, but I know from our water license here, it takes a lot of water to water a place. And before we go too far down the road of figuring out how to distribute it, I'd like to know what actually is considered available in terms of water licenses, given the fact that there seems to be a little less water around. I had a neighbor just up the river a number of years ago who was making an application for somewhat modest, and he was turned down flat at that time. So it's good. I agree that it's good to plan for this because you don't get much agriculture without water here, especially the way the summers are going. But I'd like to know before it gets very far in various areas, what is actually available and is it going to be there? Nobody has water rights anymore. We have a conditional water license. And are we liable to put pipes everywhere? And then they say, well, guess what? There's not really enough water here to do this anymore.
The water license doesn't expire, so it's still in effect unless there's changes made that cause it to expire. So I checked into it and it's still in effect. It's 597,000 cubic meters per year is available through that water license. That supplied all of Beaver Creek at one point. And it's a sizable number. I converted into liters and
converted into acre feet.
It's a lot of liters. I can do that right now if you want.
Sure, I'd be interested to know.
Okay. While I'm doing that, Fred had a question.
No, I'm just saying that any resource that has been put aside that could be used in the future, whether it's an alternative supply to supply Beaver Creek because they're under water restrictions now because of the lack of supply from the city, does that need to twin the whole line? I mean, as an engineer, you just supply it from a different spot. I mean, I can figure that out and do that myself, but it is what it is, and need to figure out a way to utilize the resource. Thank you.
Okay,
All
it
right,
sounds like-
so sorry, I have
No,
my
go ahead.
version here. You wanted it in acre feet?
Yes.
Just shy of 500 acre feet.
Okay, so that means there's 500 acres that could be irrigated. Considering they at this point, they give you an acre foot. So if you've got 500 acres in Beaver Creek, I would think it would be fully subscribed in short order. And you might not need that many pipes to get the 500 acre feet to where it's going.
That'll be something that'll come out. I mean, this is just, I'm just asking if we want to apply for the funding to do the feasibility study. So all of that will be looked at during the study to see if it's worth it, or maybe one of the recommendations will come back and say, based on the amount of farmland requiring irrigation in Beaver Creek, we recommend that you return to the province and ask for a doubling or tripling of the water license in order to make this feasible to lay the pipe. Who knows? That might be one of the recommendations that comes out of it.
Yeah, and in that respect, I'm in favor of actually pursuing it.
Awesome.
Okay, so we need it.
Oh,
Okay,
sorry.
we'll need a motion then to take this forward.
Heather had a question. She has her hand up.
Okay, sorry, Heather.
Just very quick comment. This has been something that's come up numerous times over years. It's amazing that this grant opportunity came up, and yes, you should absolutely jump on it. It's 75% funding up to $100,000. Then we get the study, then we know we find all these things out, but it's great to have all this input. I do think looking at how we can get it over to Sprout is important as well, but looking at all those options in the study, that's what it's for. And also just Beaver Creek, there is not like water like there is in the Beauforts, and there's a lot of agricultural land. A lot of people are on wells. They do not have enough water for their farming, and they're buying city water. So absolutely need it if we want to expand in Beaver Creek. And then also just Amy, in terms of the application, look at the agricultural plan from 2011, because there's also references to water and the lack of water. And look at the water demand model from the province, because there's also more references in there. So those are two good documents to include in the application as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Heather.
Okay, so can we have a motion to
So moved.
take this forward? Thank you, Bob.
Second.
Yeah,
Lisa.
Lisa.
Awesome.
Great. Off you go with it.
Off I go then. Amy has signed off of the meeting.
Yeah.
Perfect. So that kind of leads me, Anne, if I can, into my
Yeah.
next, right straight
Yeah.
into my report. I wanted to run everyone through the program. I'm going to try sharing my screen, and I'm not perfect at it. So if you guys can bear with me, there was just a few things that I wanted to show you online, if I could. Let's see, page 30. Agenda. Not there. All right. If I share my screen, that's the one I want to share right there. All right. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yeah.
And it
Yes.
says Agricultural Water Infrastructure Program.
Yes.
So this funding opportunity is happening through the Investment Agriculture Foundation. And I just wanted to show you what might be of interest from a actual producer perspective, because it is producer-based funding. And so there's 3 funding streams, and on my screen now, it shows you the allocation of the money to that stream, the maximum amount per project, and the cost shared ratio. So the stream that I was thinking, I'm not sure how many folks in the Alberni Valley or in the ACRD as a whole would be into rehabilitation upgrades of agricultural dams and reservoirs to meet regulatory requirements. I know folks have water licenses to draw, but I'm not sure if damming is really highly used. That wasn't really the stream that I was really focused on as having potential. It was this one here, stream 1, activity 2, improvement, expansion, or new construction of dugouts and storage facilities for irrigation water and livestock watering, including rangeland. And the reason why this one caught my eye is because we live in a temperate rainforest. We have a dry season, we have a wet season. The problem is not our annual rainfall. The problem is we don't have rainfall evenly throughout the year. And so I was thinking, if any producer had an interest in increasing their dugout capacity, this fund exists. And that's why I wanted to bring it to the committee's attention. But that being said, there are 3 streams of funding available. I encourage any interested producer to take a browse through the website here. It has good information on what's allowable, what's not allowable, all that sort of, all the deadlines are there, all that sort of stuff. It has this wonderful list of ineligible things that you can't, you can't use it to repay your GST or dig a well or anything like that. It has good information, and I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention. So it also has, let's see, for a new purveyor network and meters. So it does have stream 2, which is improvement, expansion, or new construction of off-farm conveyance and water supply systems to farms. This is another one that will be producer specific based on their watering licenses and their watering needs. Again, take a look through. I mean, they have a whole program dedicated to helping folks if you have any questions or anything like that. And then stream 3 was a stream that, based on the recommendation just made, the motion just passed by the ADC, I'm going to be looking into applying for the feasibility study. Are there any questions, Anna?
Just a question around, because it's through the IAF, do they also have to have like an environmental farm plan if they're an individual producer?
Some of the references made for stream 1 and 2 and the ability to apply for the funding referenced the need for some kind of, what's it called here? I don't know if you can still see my, they did make reference to the fact that you might need some of stream 3's requirement, like you might need to access stream 3 first. If you're starting from ground zero, you don't have any idea of how much water you need, where the water is going to be accessed, you're starting from nothing, then you might need to skip ahead to stream 3, apply for the funding to have your study done. And through that, the environmental component will cover off the environmental farm plan. I didn't really see the term environmental farm plan really emphasized throughout here. So
Yeah, I
don't know,
didn't,
maybe IAF emphasizes it more on some programs and less on others. I don't know.
yeah.
So it'll be a singular thing based on what every farm and every producer needs. But I just wanted to make sure people knew about it in case this is something you've been waiting for to increase your agricultural water capacity. The funding is here, and I don't want people to miss it because I didn't bring it up.
Okay, terms of reference, Amy again, and Heather Zenner. I'm going to speak on this.
Sure. Is Heather, I'm gonna stop
Still
sharing.
with us?
How do I stop sharing? There we go. Stop sharing. Okay. So Heather is there and she's signed on. Heather, do you want to walk us through kind of the changes that I'm sure everyone noticed the changes in the agenda and things like that? If you kind of want to walk us through, Heather's our manager of administrative services. And so she is our resident expert on all things agenda in terms of reference.
Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Zenner, like Amy just mentioned. I think I've met most of you with the exception of Erica and Bob, but I've been with the regional district for about 10 years in different departments. So I've met the rest of you through some other way. So you'll notice that the agenda is different today, and that's because we're making some changes to ensure that we're following through with the ACRD procedures bylaw. The board's adopted this bylaw, and there's certain procedures that are set out for the board as well as any committee. And so we're just trying to ensure that we're following those procedures. So with the hiring of Amy as the planner, we will be providing some administrative support to this committee. So we'll be doing the minutes and the agendas for Amy. And so we'll be posting those minutes and agendas on our website so that the public has access to them. Also, like Anne mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, this meeting is being live streamed, and that's a requirement of any committee. If we were holding the meeting in the boardroom, the public would be invited to attend as well. There are some reasons where you can go in camera or hold a private meeting. The only reason I could really think of, there's specific requirements under legislation to go in camera. And I thought the one thing that might come up is if this committee was nominating somebody for an award or an honor, you may want to go in camera to keep that conversation private. And I'll help Amy determine if there's any reasons to go in camera. And then the other thing that we're doing, or what I would like to do, is update the terms of reference for this committee. So I had a look at it, and there's a few references to the agriculture support workers. So I think we need to update that. I also think that the under 1.1 of the terms of reference, there's a reference to the 2011 Alberni Agriculture Plan. I think that potentially we want to reword that to reflect the work that this committee is actually doing across the whole region, not just the Alberni Valley. The scope of work may want to change as well. I don't know exactly what this committee looks at, but from today's meeting, it seems quite wide ranging. Under the membership, I do not know if this membership list reflects the actual members of the group. So if there's people missing, we should add them. And if there's people that we want to take out, we should do that. There's a section under 5.1 that states the members are appointed for a 2-year term. It's not clear to me which, if you're on your first year or your second year, so we may want to confirm that. Under 5.6, there's a section that says between June 2021 and June 2024, a participation honorarium will be available through the Farmers Institute. And I don't know if that's taking place or the details of that. Under section 6, it requires a secretary to be nominated, and you don't really need that because we will be providing the minute taking for these meetings. So I'm asking for input from the committee members on things that you would like to see changed. I obviously have some ideas on sort of procedural things, but this is your committee and the things that you want to look at, and we should reflect the terms of reference to match what this committee is actually doing. So if you could provide any comments now or in email to Amy or myself, and then our intent is to incorporate your feedback into a draft terms of reference and bring that back to you at the next meeting. And if you're happy with that draft terms of reference, then we would take it to the board for adoption at the August meeting at the end of August. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Very quiet. Everyone's just so into the terms of reference. They're probably all reading them right now, right? I did include in the agenda the terms of reference. They start on page 132. The memorandum's on page 131. But if you want to take your time and go through it and send me any questions you have or updates or things that you think should be included or things you think that should be taken out, I'm happy to accept them all. And then, like Heather said, we can do a draft with everything included and then bring it back to you in August for review and comment.
I think it's awesome to do a review. The Farmers Institute, yes, I think we have one more year of the funding for Farmers Institute members that attend these meetings. And then the other thing I think would be great, because I don't know that, well, correct me if I'm wrong, Heather, but when's the last time we said, oh, we're going to vote you in for a 2-year term? Like, people just show up at meetings. So I think maybe at the, like, once those are adopted by the board of directors, that, or it happens in December, doesn't it?
Yeah, members are officially appointed at the end of the year, but
yeah.
And we did, like, Tanya Shannon joined the committee. So the committee endorsed having Tanya join the committee when she was no longer a board of directors. So there has been some processes, but yeah, it's definitely upgrading, formalizing, and I think it's a good thing, although it's a little bit bureaucratic. But
yeah. And people that aren't officially members that are on the email listserv, I mean, if it's all public information and they can find it online, then maybe that should also happen. Because there's people that receive invites that are no longer in town or stuff like that.
That's something that I'm working on, aligning everything to do with, like, the membership from the terms of reference, the members that were appointed at the beginning of the year, and then the actual list that goes out. So I'm working on that kind of in the background with Heather. And like you said, if everything's totally publicly available, they can even watch the meeting on, like, it's being live streamed and recorded. So it'll be on our YouTube channel. You can watch it after the fact. You're welcome to. Then it gives a lot more capacity for people to both access the information and also so that we don't have to worry about inviting every single person all the time because the information is public. So.
And I'm also just realizing that I'm not endorsed to actually be here at this point.
You 100% are. I'll have you know the terms of reference say that the AVTTS Alberni Food Hub is supposed to be a member and you are the manager of Food Security
Then let's change that, because it's not the AVTTS Food Hub, it's the Alberni Valley Food Security Society. There you go. Boom.
There you go. First change in the books.
I think one thing that occurred to me, I do think there's value in having kind of that email list that goes out to people, even as a reminder that the meeting's happening, because people have asked to receive the minutes and the agendas and the notifications, like they've asked specifically. So if we just kind of take them off, then it falls off the radar for them. And yeah, they could find the information online, but are they being reminded and being actively engaged? And I think there's value in that, and people have actually, they have asked for it. So I was thinking about that and how to make sure that it's inclusive and proactive in getting participation as well.
I'm hoping too, as time goes on, as my name and position and job with the ACRD to promote ag and to be here for agricultural producers and people who are interested in food security and all that sort of stuff. I'm hoping that you guys will feel free to forward my name and my information to people who want more information. If they reach out to me asking where can I find this, I'm happy to send them links, like specific links, so they can bookmark it to help them through that process. Because I know it's not natural for everybody to just start going on the internet and finding agendas and downloading minutes and all that sort of stuff. It's not a natural thing for a lot of people. So if anyone has any questions and you're like, hey, there's a person at the ACRD for that, if you have ag questions or anything like that, I'm happy to help them and help them get set up so they know where to access it and it's easy for them to access. And it's kind of a, in their bookmarks, it's just one click will take you there kind of thing.
I'm happy to have a conversation with you and Heather too, to just because some of the questions you had, Heather, are really good. And there's some, some of the things are kind of easy, like the 1.1, you could just add the Alberni Agriculture Plan and the coastal addendum to the Alberni Agriculture Plan. Even though the Alberni Agriculture Plan is really old and like, are we actually working off that? It's still probably the best document until we get it updated as a baseline reference. But yeah.
Or maybe if we wanted to, if the committee was considering expanding their scope beyond strictly agriculture to include aspects of more food security.
Yeah.
And to expand their purview from, so there's room for everyone at the table. There's room for agricultural producers. We talk about producer things, but we're also going to bring forward reports like the Tofino Community Food Initiative, where it's more food security and community gardens, and it's not agricultural production for sale, it's agricultural production more for food security and things like that, if we wanted to include that in the mandate of the ADC.
And that's a conversation we've had in the past, which I think personally is really important. And in the work that I've done in the community, that is like kind of half of the work that's been done. And I will also speak for the other side in that there have been people who are cautious of that because agriculture itself is so stressed and doesn't necessarily get the attention that's needed. So and it was maybe sort of bigger kind of producers worrying about having their needs diluted by being inclusive. So my personal opinion is that both are really important, and we have to strongly remember that we also really need to be supporting the larger producers and those issues. But I do believe that the work that actually happens within this committee is both.
The one question that I did have before, I don't know if anyone has any more comments that they wanted to make, but I did have a question about the membership. There is youth or 4-H listed in the terms of reference as membership. And I asked, and apparently the 4-H program is not active, but I did want to put a bug in everyone's ear to think about if there is a youth organization or youth representatives that would be ripe to take that place, or if that's something that should remain on the terms of reference as a membership. So I just wanted to bring that up and put it in everyone's forefront. Heather, what do you?
I'm gonna do my little kind of like little brain connection thing. And this is, I guess, a little bit close to my heart, but I think really important in our community is I had a conversation with Deb Hamilton at ADAPS, Alberni Drug and Alcohol Prevention Society, a while back, and they were really interested in. She's really interested in doing more around food and getting the youth more involved around food. And like, wow, what an important group. Deb does amazing work in the community. So that could be an avenue and a great place for you to maybe have a conversation, Amy.
For sure. Can you send me her information?
Pardon me?
Can you send me her information? Kind of do a little introduction thing? Yeah,
it's not more specifically agriculture related, that group. However, it's in part of like community health and well-being and getting youth involved. It could be that, and they may want to do some projects and activities. So there could be some good things that would come of something like that.
Cool.
There is also, through our Healthy Schools program, we support a lot of food related events and that we've been doing, and at the high school there is a Wednesday wellness group through the mental health mental health workers, and so there might be a youth who might be interested in wanting to represent youth. Like Heather, I'm not sure if you were thinking of Deb kind of being the member, or would you say like she would know of a youth who would want to be part of it? Yeah. I mean,
yeah, I don't know. It just kind of came up. I can't imagine Deb would have the time, to be honest.
Oh, yeah, I didn't think
it might be
yeah.
something that maybe she has a connection with the young person who's more interested. So, yeah.
Helen?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I know at the high school, a lot of students can initiate clubs. They currently, or they have had in the past, a beekeepers club. That's if there are 4-H club members that did want to join a club or create a club at the high school, they just need to find a teacher or someone to sponsor them, and then they could set the club up, and then we could invite them, or we could let them know we exist or that we want to hear from them. So I think there are some avenues there. I'm not sure who to talk to, but I'll try to see if I can see who we can reach out to, or to get you some youth. So that's what that might be a resource for us.
Anna?
I was just going to say, I'm actually, like, my summer students doing work at the 8th Avenue School Garden right now, and I'm in conversation with Dave Marr. I do feel like the Food Security Society is probably a better fit for youth. Our meetings are in the afternoon, not in the morning. Things like the Gleaning Project, participating in work parties at the community garden, like, that's a pretty easy avenue for youth to feel like they're part of a community. But yeah, just 8th Avenue School Dave's got some good ideas and wants to go after some larger funding for agriculture educational, like a training center almost, right in the middle of town, has all the liability covered. Very cool. So that we're just in the initial discussions around that, but just to, put that on your radar, and then maybe once something is a little more fleshed out, can bring it to the larger group, or have Dave come and speak to the larger group about it.
Oh, that's neat.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Yeah, I like the idea of kind of like the youth, like if whatever group, if there could be a group like the 8th Ave or at the high school, wherever it is, using the tool of almost like mentorship, and mentorship almost in governance, because this is the committee and they would have a group or a committee for their project, or things like that. And we really do need more food system kind of people working in food system capacity roles. So, and there isn't like job avenues for that. So it could be as a mentorship stream by involving in the committee and then seeing how things are done, working in groups and specifically around food. So that's actually very exciting and important. I'm glad you brought that up, Amy.
Perfect.
Well, it looks like you got some information here to work on, start working. We'll see.
Yeah, so the committee can expect then a draft with updates to come back to the next, our next meeting is on August 15th. So you can expect to see a draft in there, and then we can take further comments on the draft and go from there. And eventually it'll make its way up to the board.
Good. Okay, so we should move on to members' reports. And the first one was the city of Port Alberni, and Pat had to leave us, but he did, he did leave us something in the chat. That he's meeting with the NFLD. I'm not sure what that stands for. Do you?
Newfoundland.
Oh, well, yeah, I knew that part, but I didn't know. Based company this week to explore added value of seafood waste to the valley. So that's interesting.
That's huge. And I know Community Futures has been working on this, and they work closely with the city. So that's probably what that's part of it is the green crab. And oh my gosh, the number is not at the top of my head, but millions and millions of pounds of green crab, which could be fertilizer or food. So that's great.
Good. Helen, do you have anything to add for the city? Or sorry, for the school district?
I would just add that we had a presentation at our last public school board meeting from Tessa Steven. I hope I'm saying her name right. She's the Central Island Community animator, farm to schools person. She also is with the Alberta Clayoquot School Food Systems Workshop. You guys probably know who she is. Anyway, she was talking to us about the farm to school and the different programs, and and her desire to look at getting funding. I'll just read her request. She requests that the Board of Education direct staff to engage in conversations with the school food system working group on how to strengthen school food systems at SD70. She also would like Feeding Futures funding to hire a district food coordinator, bring in a district-wide collaboration approach to the planning and delivery of school meal and food programs. And the third thing she's requesting or hoping for, or petitioning for, I should say, is form an SD70 school food committee, which would include members of our school food system working groups. So yes, she made that presentation. So we have received that information and we'll discuss it further, but I think it's very interesting. She really lined it up with our new strategic plan, which has some strong we have a desire for some strong environmental stewardship changes. So I am looking forward to see what direction we are all going to agree to go in. And I know that there's strong motivation to do some great environmental stewardship stuff. And I try to share all your info with the group. And thank you. That's about all I want to say. Thank you.
Anna has a question.
My question, Helen, is just around, are you able to speak to the dollar amount that SD70 is receiving? Because I was there for the presentation, and I know that on the agenda later on was how discussing utilizing those funds that SD70 is receiving. Is there an amount that you can share with the group? Because it is quite, I'm assuming, significant.
Yes, you know, I didn't grab that information, but I can get it to you. It's the federal government, our provincial government is bringing in food and wanting to support our students and feed them. So the money is directed to us to then use it to do that. There's a lot of volunteer programs that I'm finding out about, like the breakfast clubs and stuff in the schools. And I'm still learning where everything is going, but I don't have the number. I think I could guess, but if I guess, I might be wrong, and that would be horrible.
Yeah, no, I was just curious because I know what some of the other school districts are getting on Vancouver Island, and it's a lot. So.
Yeah, it's not nothing, that's for sure. Yeah, and we currently spend a lot, there's a lot of money going out towards supporting food programs. And yeah, I'll get that for you. Sorry, I don't have that on me.
Heather, show.
Yeah, I think I guess just speaking to Tessa's the requests there, I guess, and that was, I think, the basis for involving the SD70 school food systems working group, which is the new working group that just formed in the last year, that includes all of these nonprofits and all of the different organizations working in school food already. So I think that was the basis of the recommendation, that the SD70 engage with that group and bring them into working to try and support planning for how to use all that money. Is because there's a lot of expertise and a lot of people already gathered together in a network. So yeah, that network, I think, would like to work with SD70 more closely and really support using that money in a good way to benefit all the different programs. So it's exciting.
Okay. Alberni Farmers Institute, Lisa, you have anything to report on?
Directors will be having a meeting, hopefully, I think it's tomorrow, by the looks of who can attend, so that we can get organized for the fall fair.
Good. Any questions for Lisa? Hearing none, we'll move on. Fall fair. So I spoke on updating the Cultivating Our Community guide to farm stands in the Alberni Valley. Well, it's now being printed, so I will be getting that to interested parties and get it out there into the community. We only printed 1,000 copies this year because I did have a lot left over from 2 years ago. So hopefully they get spread out pretty fast. because I think it's a very useful tool, so. I'll be sending out formal invitations to groups interested in participating in the fair. We do have half a building to fill with agriculture education, so hopefully we can put on a good display this year. Is there any questions? Anna?
I was just gonna say regarding the farm gate stand, little brochure, is that like, we're at quite a few events, like I'm doing 7 events in July, there's a bunch in August, so.
Yeah, I was gonna contact, yeah.
Yeah, and then there's 2 or 3 of the farm gate stands requested if they could have some at their farm gate stand, which I
Okay.
think would also be great, or even if we just, maybe blow it up and laminate it, or have it online with a QR code and they can.
Yeah, I was thinking of
people
putting
with
it
their
online,
phones.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna contact you and say I just got them from the printer, so
Awesome.
make sure you got them, because I know you told me about
I-
several events that
I
you were
can
involved
log them.
in. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Alberni Valley Food Security, there you are, Anna, you're up again.
Yeah, okay, well, I did send stuff in to Amy. I'm not sure where the agenda is on my computer, so. But I guess just to add to whatever I added verbally was just a little bit about the meat that is down at the Dock Plus. We are not going to be able to distribute it via the coupon program at the Spirit Square Farmers Market after multiple conversations with the environmental health officer. And so I just think it's a good reminder, like if this program moves forward and happens again, that component, which is a federal law, labeling and regulations, that's followed in the process. Like it's got to be a huge part of, yes, processing, and then labeling should be a part of that program, or it should be followed correctly. I mean, perhaps I only opened 2 boxes, but they weren't labeled correctly, or they weren't labeled at all. And to go through for me to, send my summer student to a freezer to make new labels, to try and get them onto something for not going there, not doing it. It's a waste of time. So, but it's just something to keep in mind moving forward. If that program happens again, be great to see the labeling go ahead. So we'll be distributing to organizations, and then potentially making up some little meat packets that we can distribute to the people that Island Health has identified and gives the coupons to anyways. So that's going to be kind of the workaround because the Island Health has no issue with that. So that's where that is at. And then I can talk about Farmland Advantage a bit more, but Heather, I see your hands up.
Yeah, just thanks for following up with that, Anna. And I'm assuming you talked to Dave, but I'm wondering if maybe it's crazy to me that it wasn't labeled as part of that course. I don't know how that was missed, but I'm wondering if maybe the doc didn't have the equipment for labeling. Is that part of it? And maybe that's something that needs to be looked at as well. But I totally agree, in the next program, it has to be in there. Don't know why it wasn't.
Yeah, so. I didn't speak to Dave because once the initial conversation to have was with the environmental health officer. And then I had that conversation. I'm like, well, I don't need to really go down this route any further because I know what my options are. But that's why I'm saying at this juncture, because it's ACRD North Island College, that needs to be put on the docket or as a, just as a point of interest for future programs. It's an awesome program. I want to see it happen again, but it would be just neat to have a few more things available if they're going to go to the public and not be like dealing with environmental health officers. So
I would just say, Amy, maybe check with Cecilia when you talk to her to make sure that equipment's there. because that would be a barrier to getting it done.
Mhm. Yeah, and then just quickly regarding farmland advantage, just at this point in time, we've got 8 farms that are interested in participating, and that they will, you know, they're interested in having the riparian health assessment done. And it's not till after the assessment is seen that a farmer actually has to sign anything. So currently it's Wayne Haddo is the one that's doing the riparian health assessments, but Melanie Dyson will be taking on that role in the future. Wayne will be training her because they're just expanding this program, you know, because it's run for the last 3-4 years on Vancouver Island. It's in Coxsala, it's in Black Creek, and now it's in the Alberni Valley, but they will continue to expand the program because they've got a lot of funds coming down the pipes for this. So yeah, I had a meeting with them again yesterday, so they're pretty happy. They're like, well, if we get 5 farms for this year, that's excellent. The highway is a bit of a barrier for sure, because the restoration team is not in Port Alberni, but that work wouldn't be done until the fall anyways. I can set out, like, yeah, the stuff that was in the agenda package, it's kind of like, you know, fluffy, whatever. But I can send out the frequently asked questions, which to me, that's had the, you know, I can send out the brochure to you, Amy, so you have it on hand, as well as the frequently asked questions, which to me, that little document has got the best information around the Farmland Advantage program. So.
The only other note I had in the agenda from you, Anna, was an update on Family Farm Day. At the time, you had 9 confirmed and waiting for feedback from 3 more.
Yeah, I've got 5 farms and then 5 what I would call urban sites confirmed, and then the Doc Plus as well. But Cecilia only wants to have 2 set tours at 11 and 1, so going to have to work on that a little bit. And I do believe there's 1 more farm I'm waiting to hear back from. And yeah, so it will be, and I did a typo in the original email that went out to folks. It will be 4 hours, not just 3. So yeah, just have to decide if it's 10:30 to 2:30 or 11 to 3. Stephanie is getting going on the like poster design, the brochure design, and then designing new vouchers, because the ACRD has agreed to, same as in past years, to do, there'll be $210 vouchers that we can distribute at the fall fair. And last year, what we did, because we ended up with quite a few that didn't get distributed, and we ended up giving them to Island Health, and they gave them through the early childhood education. Do you remember, Ellen, how they went out to the schools? But we had a massive uptake on the vouchers last year, which we had never had in the past. Like we'd always done like, you know, between $500 and $600 worth, whereas last year, I think it was like almost $1,300. It was great. It was really, really good. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, so, but yeah, that's coming along, and I was just going to wait. Like this week, I'll be reaching out to all the folks that have agreed to be participants, just to ensure that they have adequate insurance. That's one of the things that has come up, and Amy has done some investigating into that, and there is not a insurance, like kind of a blanket group event insurance that the ACRD can purchase, and the Ministry of Environment doesn't, like, there's nothing like that. So each individual place, farm, garden will need to have something in place. Or I don't know, do we get them to sign something saying it doesn't fall back? You know, they can't turn around.
There was a bunch of different information that came back from the different people I checked in with, because there's not many governmental bodies that hold events in areas that don't already have insurance. A lot of city, for instance, the city of Port Alberni would hold public events. Well, they hold them at city facilities, and they have their own insurance at their own facilities. So they had like a huge public event at Bob Daly Stadium. Well, that's city property. and then their insurance covers themselves. So to find a governmental agency that's holding public events on private land is quite rare. The closest I came to was, remember how Tom Odell told us that the Ministry of Agriculture was having those on-farm days. And they said that in that case, he took a while to answer me because he had to check into it himself. And he said in that case, it came back from way above his pay grade that in the case of any liability associated with the ministry would be the ministry's to bear, but any negligence associated with the producer, that would be theirs to bear. And the example that he gave was if a producer is holding a public event, invites people into their yard, and they have a dog there that then bites someone, that might be considered as negligence on the producer because you've literally invited the public into your yard. You had a dog there that you weren't sure was good around people, and then it bit someone. But negligence associated with the ministry would be not doing what would be considered due diligence for hazards beforehand and inviting people into a place that wasn't known to be reasonably non-hazardous. So, and I asked him if he had some kind of checklist that was done beforehand on the farms to prove due diligence, where you have just a common list of hazards that you might find in a public place or in a farm situation, and you do a event inspection with the farmer, and they walk you around and you go through just common things to think about when you're inviting the public onto your land. And you kind of have documentation that you've gone through this checklist with the farmer, they sign off on it, you sign off on it, and it's a paper trail basically indicating that you've done some kind of pre-work to try and mitigate what hazards you can, like reasonably. It's all to do with like what a reasonable person would do in the same situation. So that came up, and he said they don't have anything in place like that, but I thought it was a good idea. That's just something from my previous life as a urban municipality employee that I would do. Heather?
I think that's actually a good idea, Amy. And if you have the time to go in to each of the farms and just have a little walk around, and even in a supportive way to the farms, to give them some ideas about, oh, so you're hosting Family Farms Day. All right, let's look at what you're doing, and what could we showcase? And even point out, the different things that they could help educate the public about. But for insurance and safety purposes as well. And then even a producer can go back to their insurance agency and say, well, we did this walkthrough, so we did actively consider safety before this event. And then we have that proof, so that if there is an issue, then we have the proof that, well, yeah, we weren't just being negligent, we actually were proactive. And that could help if there ever was a claim, to make sure that insurance covered the claim, for example.
That's kind of what I had in my mind too, but I wasn't sure if I was going down the right path there.
I like the idea. I think it helps to make it professionalize it, and in a way it is supportive for the producers, as long as they don't feel like it's a burden, because it's another thing that they have to do. But
yeah,
it could be an optional thing too.
Yeah, and we will lose some people that way. Like one of the farms won't participate this year due to that. So,
but this would be something I would want to approach from a supportive, from a supportive lens, not something downloading on the farmers, but I wanted to make it an opportunity for me to meet the producers and have a tour around, and they can show me their operation if they want to. And I mean, that's just part of my job now at the ACRD, is to connect with producers in a positive manner. And I want to, right? That's my jam. That's my passion. So if there's a way to do it and turn it into something good, that'll turn into a good public education process and have some documentation and, support Family Farms Day, then I'm totally game.
yeah, it would just have to be done very quickly.
Right.
And another place to look at is other communities that host similar events. And what do they do for insurance? So I'm not sure exactly who hosts them, but I know Cowichan and Comox both do like public farm tours on occasion. So yeah, just seeing what other people are doing in terms of insurance.
Okay. Erica, do you have something to report from the West Coast? She's still with us?
No, she had to run. She had a
She went,
work
yeah.
meeting
Yeah.
starting.
And Jen's not with us for New Channel Tribal Council.
No.
Anybody got anything to add to? And the dock food processing, Cecilia couldn't make it. And I don't believe Tanya's with us.
No, she asked me to put a couple things on for her
Okay.
report and then speak to them. She just
Okay.
wanted to let everyone know because she brought it up at last meeting about the event that they're holding at the cabin for their locally produced meal event. She just wanted to let everyone know it's sold out. And
Good.
she did manage to find all the ingredients locally. So she was pretty pleased with that. And then just something for people to put on their calendars and get the word out. There's going to be a market at the cabin August 29th from 5 till 8 p.m. And they are looking for more food and agriculture related vendors. There's always, crafting sort of stream people that are interested in doing things like that, but she is interested in making it more agricultural. So she did she wanted me to put the email in there. If anyone knows of any vendors that would be interested in coming and working that market and selling some of their goods, then please email her at that email address and then she can go from there.
Yeah, I have a couple names I can give to her, so.
Yeah, I'll also send you the thing she put together something last night that she sent me around that market. And yeah, she does need more, you have to have more agricultural producers than crafters.
Mm-hmm.
Good, so.
Okay, so I guess we just need a motion to the Agriculture Development Committee receive these reports for information purposes.
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Helen. Seconder?
Fred will second it.
Thank you. There's nobody opposed. It'll be carried. Is there any number 8 was late business? Was there any late business that we needed to discuss? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next one is question period. No
So,
question?
yeah,
Yes.
I'll just highlight that the public is invited to ask questions if they're viewing this live stream. So there's an option for participants to put a question in the question and answer box, and I can see that there's none. And then we also allow any of the public to send an email to responses@acrd.bc.ca. So I'll just check that email inbox, and we haven't received any public questions. So we can just check that part off.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Well, hearing no more business, it's 11:06. I can officially adjourn the meeting then.
Oh, Heather had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Heather, I missed that. I just looked up when I saw your. Go ahead, you're muted.
Oh, thanks. I just wanted to ask Heather Zenner, is there a way we can see if anybody is watching live? Like, because I'm looking at my screen, I can't see, I don't know.
I don't know if you can see, but I can see. And there is actually one attendee, but I know who it is. It's Kristen, our administrative assistant. She's going to be taking minutes at the next meeting. So she's watching just to learn
Just to see what's
who you
going on.
all are
Yeah.
and get prepared. So I don't think that you can, but I can.
Okay, and then I think you already said this already, but is it also recorded and then people can watch it later?
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, it'll be on our website, right where the agenda is listed on the website. So people can go back at any time and watch it later on.
I think that's important for people to, and maybe even for a few meetings to be just reminded of, because we're used to conversing in a closed room and our meetings are, we know each other well, and we can be kind of personal, and maybe people need to be reminded if there's need to be cautious about talking about other people or referencing things specifically. I don't know, just something for everybody to remember, because we don't want to cause any hurt or harm to anyone who might be listening in, or confusion. Even sometimes things like we say something sarcastically or a joke, And everybody who we see all the time knows that we're saying that sarcastically as a joke, but somebody who's just watching may not understand and take things in a wrong way. So yeah, it's just a little different.
Yeah, it is. That's a good reminder, Heather. And just remember that there's a motion to adjourn the meeting and second it.
Okay. I'll call for that motion, please, to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it, Lisa.
There's nobody opposed. This meeting will be officially adjourned.
Awesome. Thanks for coming, everyone. Have a good month, and I'll watch your inboxes for the next invite.
Thanks. Have a great day, everybody. Okay, bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.